FCLE Checks and Balances Practice Questions. Question 1. What historic document served as the dynamic proclamation of the 13 colonies' break from British rule, emphasizing life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Option A. The Articles of Confederation. Option B. The Declaration of Independence. Option C. The Treaty of Ghent. Option D. The Proclamation of 1763. The correct answer is option B. The Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence proclaimed the colony's separation from Britain and grounded that break in natural rights such as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Articles created a government after independence, and the Treaty of Ghent ended the War of 1812. The proclamation of separation is the Declaration. Question 2. In Chisholm v. Georgia, 1793, the Supreme Court ruled that states could be sued in federal court by citizens of another state, leading directly to the ratification of which amendment to reverse the decision? Option A. 11th Amendment. Option B. 12th Amendment. Option C. 13th Amendment. Option D. 14th Amendment. The correct answer is option A. 11th Amendment. Chisholm v. Georgia led to the 11th Amendment, which limited federal suits against states by citizens of another state or foreign citizens. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments address slavery, citizenship, and voting. State sovereign immunity points to the 11th. Question 3. Which political philosopher's concept of natural rights, specifically life, liberty, and property, heavily influenced the writing of the Declaration of Independence? Option A. Thomas Hobbes. Option B. John Locke. Option C. Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Option D. Baron de Montesquieu. The correct answer is option B. John Locke. John Locke's theory of natural rights taught that people possess life, liberty, and property before government exists. Hobbes emphasized strong sovereign control, Rousseau stressed the general will, and Montesquieu is tied to separation of powers rather than the Declaration's rights language. For FCLE, connect Locke with natural rights and the Declaration's claim that rights are unalienable. Question 4. What did the anti-federalist writer Patrick Henry famously demand when expressing his opposition to the strong central government proposed by the Constitution? Option A. Give me liberty, or give me death. Note, historic speech preceding the Revolution. Option B. No taxation without representation. Option C. Expressions of deep concern over the lack of explicit liberty protections. Option D. Requests for an immediate return to British rule. The correct answer is option C. Expressions of deep concern over the lack of explicit liberty protections. Patrick Henry and other anti-federalists warned that the proposed Constitution lacked explicit protections for liberty. His famous liberty or death line came before the Revolution, not as the technical demand in the ratification debate. The ratification issue was the need for a Bill of Rights. Question 5. According to the U.S. Constitution, what body must authorize the allocation and spending of all public federal funds? Option A. The President via executive decree. Option B. Congress through statutory appropriations bills. Option C. The Treasury Department through internal audits. Option D. The Office of Management and Budget. The correct answer is option B. Congress through statutory appropriations bills. Congress must authorize federal spending through appropriations. The President proposes and administers budgets, but public funds cannot be spent without statutory authorization. The power of the purse belongs to Congress. Question 6. What is an example of an informal amendment to the U.S. political system that developed through long-standing historical custom rather than constitutional text? Option A. The creation of congressional districts. Option B. The formation of the President's cabinet and political parties. Option C. The use of a bicameral structure in the legislature. Option D. The process for choosing Supreme Court justices. The correct answer is option B. The formation of the President's cabinet and political parties. The cabinet and political parties are informal constitutional developments because they became central through practice rather than explicit constitutional design. Bicameralism and judicial appointment procedures are written into the Constitution. Informal amendments are changes in practice without textual amendment. Question 7. Which amendment provides a constitutional protection for individual rights that are not explicitly enumerated in the text of the Constitution? Option A. First Amendment. Option B. Fourth Amendment. Option C. Eighth Amendment. Option D. Ninth Amendment. The correct answer is option D. Ninth Amendment. The Ninth Amendment protects the idea that people retain rights not specifically listed in the Constitution. The First, Fourth, and Eighth Amendments protect listed rights in specific areas. Enumerated rights point to the Ninth. Question 8. Which constitutional provision requires that all bills designed to raise public revenue must originate in a specific House of Congress? Option A. The origination clause requires them to start in the Senate. Option B. The origination clause requires them to start in the House of Representatives. Option C. The presentment clause requires them to start in the executive office. Option D. The supremacy clause requires them to start in state legislatures. The correct answer is option B. The origination clause requires them to start in the House of Representatives. The origination clause requires revenue bills to begin in the House of Representatives. It does not require revenue bills to start in the Senate, executive office, or state legislatures. The rule reflects the House's closer connection to the people through two-year terms. Question 9. Title IX of the Education Amendments Act of 1972 explicitly prohibits discrimination based on what characteristic in federally funded education programs? Option A. Age. Option B. Socioeconomic status. Option C. Sex. Option D. Religious affiliation. The correct answer is option C. Sex. Title IX prohibits sex discrimination in federally funded education programs and activities. It is not primarily about age, income, or religion. Education access and sex discrimination point to Title IX. Question 10. In New York Times Company v. United States, 1971, often called the Pentagon Papers case, the Supreme Court ruled against the government's use of what action? Option A. Subpoena power over investigative journalists. Option B. Prior restraint, censorship before publication, of news materials. Option C. Electronic surveillance of foreign embassy communications. Option D. Levying punitive corporate taxes on media companies. The correct answer is option B. Prior restraint, censorship before publication, of news materials. New York Times Company v. United States rejected prior restraint in the Pentagon Papers dispute, protecting publication absent an extraordinary justification. It was not about taxes, embassy surveillance, or subpoenas over sources. Censorship before publication is prior restraint. Question 11. What is the constitutional term of office for a member of the United States House of Representatives? Option A. 2 years. Option B. 4 years. Option C. 6 years. Option D. 8 years. The correct answer is option A. 2 years. Members of the House of Representatives serve 2-year terms. Senators serve 6 years and presidents serve 4. Short House terms keep representatives closely accountable to voters. Question 12. Which Supreme Court case established the judicial doctrine of separate but equal, legally justifying state-mandated racial segregation in public facilities? Option A. Dred Scott v. Sandford, 1857. Option B. Plessy v. Ferguson, 1896. Option C. Brown v. Board of Education, 1954. Option D. Korematsu v. United States, 1944. The correct answer is option B. Plessy v. Ferguson, 1896. Plessy v. Ferguson created the separate but equal doctrine, permitting racial segregation if facilities were claimed to be equal. Dred Scott dealt with slavery and citizenship, while Brown later rejected Plessy. Segregated public facilities point to Plessy. Question 13. Which clause allows individuals to move freely between states without having their basic civil rights stripped away by local laws? Option A. The Privileges and Immunities Clause of Article 4. Option B. The Commerce Clause of Article I. Option C. The Necessary and Proper Clause of Article I. Option D. The Presentment Clause of Article 2. The correct answer is option A. The Privileges and Immunities Clause of Article 4. The Article 4 Privileges and Immunities Clause protects citizens traveling or moving among states from discrimination in basic civil rights. The Commerce Clause regulates interstate commerce, and the Necessary and Proper and Presentment Clauses address federal lawmaking. Interstate citizenship rights are the key clue. Question 14. What did the Supreme Court rule in the case of Engel v. Vitale, 1962, regarding public education? Option A. Public schools must provide equal funding for religious clubs. Option B. State-sponsored, mandatory prayer in public schools violates the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. Option C. School districts can teach religious texts as historical reference materials. Option D. Public funds can be used to purchase textbooks for private religious academies. The correct answer is option B. State-sponsored, mandatory prayer in public schools violates the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. Engel v. Vitale held that state-sponsored prayer in public schools violates the Establishment Clause. Equal funding for clubs and textbook aid are different religion in schools issues. Government-written or government-sponsored prayer is the Engel clue. Question 15. Which amendment lowered the mandatory minimum voting age across the United States from 21 to 18 years old? Option A. 22nd Amendment. Option B. 24th Amendment. Option C. 25th Amendment. Option D. 26th Amendment. The correct answer is option D. 26th Amendment. The 26th Amendment lowered the voting age to 18. The 22nd limits presidential terms, the 24th bans poll taxes in federal elections, and the 25th addresses presidential disability. Voting at 18 is the 26th Amendment. Question 16. What is the core definition of the constitutional principle known as popular sovereignty? Option A. The federal government possesses supreme authority over state governments. Option B. Government power is derived entirely from the consent and will of the governed. Option C. The Supreme Court has the ultimate authority to interpret the legality of laws. Option D. Elected representatives can govern without checking back with constituents. The correct answer is option B. Government power is derived entirely from the consent and will of the governed. Popular sovereignty means political power comes from the people and government rules only by their consent. Federal supremacy, judicial review, and unchecked representative rule describe different constitutional ideas. For FCLE, link popular sovereignty with phrases such as consent of the governed and we the people. Question 17. Which system of government concentrates all administrative and governing authority within a single centralized national entity, leaving regional governments with little to no independent power? Option A. Federal system. Option B. Unitary system. Option C. Confederal system. Option D. Anarchist commune. The correct answer is option B. Unitary system. A unitary system places final governing authority in one central national government. Federalism shares power with states, confederation makes the center weak, and anarchism rejects formal governing authority. The key clue is regional governments having little independent power. Question 18. In Everson v. Board of Education, 1947, the Supreme Court incorporated which clause of the First Amendment to the states, while upholding a program reimbursing bus fares for parochial school students? Option A. The Free Exercise Clause. Option B. The Establishment Clause. Option C. The Speech Clause. Option D. The Assembly Clause. The correct answer is option B. The Establishment Clause. Everson incorporated the Establishment Clause against the states while upholding reimbursement for bus transportation to parochial schools. Free exercise protects religious practice, but Everson's major incorporation point is establishment. State aid and church-state separation point to Everson. Question 19. Which basic structural power allows Congress to compel individuals to appear and provide testimony during official committee investigations? Option A. The power of eminent domain. Option B. The power of subpoena. Option C. The power of executive fiat. Option D. The power of injunction. The correct answer is option B. The power of subpoena. Subpoena power lets Congress require people to appear or produce information during investigations. Eminent domain takes property, executive fiat is unilateral executive action, and an injunction is a court order. Compelled testimony points to subpoena. Question 20. Which system of economy is most closely aligned with the American democratic emphasis on individual liberty and limited government intervention? Option A. Command economy. Option B. Traditional barter economy. Option C. Market economy, capitalism. Option D. State-directed mercantilism. The correct answer is option C. Market economy, capitalism. A market economy uses private choice, competition, and limited government direction, matching the American emphasis on economic liberty. A command economy places production under state control, and traditional barter lacks modern market institutions. Capitalism is the economic system most associated with private property and voluntary exchange. Question 21. Which constitutional clause requires that the President shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed? Option A. The Take Care Clause. Option B. The Presentment Clause. Option C. The Vesting Clause. Option D. The Commander-in-Chief Clause. The correct answer is option A. The Take Care Clause. The Take Care Clause requires the President to faithfully execute the laws. Presentment concerns bills becoming law, vesting clauses grant broad branch authority, and Commander-in-Chief concerns military command. Execution of laws is the take care clue. Question 22. In Federalist No. 10, James Madison argued that the mischiefs of factions could be best controlled by what type of governance structure? Option A. A small, direct democracy with highly localized assemblies. Option B. A large representative republic that prevents any single faction from easily dominating. Option C. A strong, absolute military dictatorship that suppresses political debate. Option D. A confederal system that gives individual states absolute veto power over all national laws. The correct answer is option B. A large representative republic that prevents any single faction from easily dominating. Federalist No. 10 argues that a large republic controls factions by multiplying interests and making domination by one faction harder. A small direct democracy would be more vulnerable to majority passion, and dictatorship would destroy liberty. Madison's answer to faction was representation across an extended republic. Question 23. The doctrine of selective incorporation applies the protections of the Bill of Rights to state governments through which constitutional clause? Option A. The Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Option B. The Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. Option C. The Necessary and Proper Clause of Article I. Option D. The Commerce Clause of Article I. The correct answer is option B. The Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. Selective incorporation uses the 14th Amendment's Due Process Clause to apply most Bill of Rights protections against the states. Equal protection addresses discriminatory treatment, while the Necessary and Proper and Commerce Clauses concern congressional power. Incorporation is about making rights enforceable against state governments. Question 24. Which statement best illustrates the concept of a social contract as described by Enlightenment thinkers? Option A. Citizens agree to obey a government in exchange for the protection of their natural rights. Option B. Wealthy individuals provide resources to the state in exchange for exclusive titles. Option C. A monarch rules by divine authority and must be obeyed unconditionally by subjects. Option D. Sovereign states form a permanent military alliance without giving up local autonomy. The correct answer is option A. Citizens agree to obey a government in exchange for the protection of their natural rights. A social contract means people accept government authority in exchange for protection of their rights and security. Divine right monarchy, military alliances, and privilege-based bargains do not rest on equal consent between citizens and government. The concept is central to Enlightenment thinking because it makes government accountable to the governed. Question 25. The requirement that law enforcement officers must inform arrested individuals of their right to remain silent and right to legal counsel was established by which case? Option A. Mapp v. Ohio, 1961. Option B. Gideon v. Wainwright, 1963. Option C. Miranda v. Arizona, 1966. Option D. Terry v. Ohio, 1968. The correct answer is option C. Miranda v. Arizona, 1966. Miranda v. Arizona requires police to inform suspects of the right to remain silent and the right to counsel before custodial interrogation. Mapp concerns illegally obtained evidence, Gideon appointed counsel, and Terry stop and frisk. Warnings during interrogation point to Miranda. Question 26. Which foundational principle emphasizes that all individuals are born with inherent dignity and are entitled to equal protection under the law, regardless of their social status? Option A. Elite theory of democracy. Option B. Equality under the law. Option C. Pluralism. Option D. Divine right of kings. The correct answer is option B. Equality under the law. Equality under the law means every person has inherent dignity and is entitled to the same legal protection regardless of status. Elite theory, pluralism, and divine right describe power arrangements, not equal legal treatment. This principle supports the broader democratic value of equal citizenship. Question 27. Which ideological viewpoint emphasizes minimal government intervention in both economic affairs and the personal lives of citizens? Option A. Socialism. Option B. Libertarianism. Option C. Authoritarianism. Option D. Communism. The correct answer is option B. Libertarianism. Libertarianism emphasizes individual freedom and limited government involvement in both markets and private life. Socialism and communism involve greater collective or state control over economics, while authoritarianism limits personal and political freedom. The memory cue is maximum liberty with minimal state intervention. Question 28. Which Supreme Court ruling dealt with the standard for police stop and frisk procedures, requiring officers to have reasonable suspicion before a brief detention and pat-down? Option A. Mapp v. Ohio, 1961. Option B. Miranda v. Arizona, 1966. Option C. Terry v. Ohio, 1968. Option D. Gideon v. Wainwright, 1963. The correct answer is option C. Terry v. Ohio, 1968. Terry v. Ohio allows brief stop and frisk encounters when officers have reasonable suspicion of criminal activity and danger. Mapp excludes illegally obtained evidence, Miranda requires warnings, and Gideon provides counsel. Reasonable suspicion for a pat-down points to Terry. Question 29. How does a constitutional republic differ fundamentally from a pure, unchecked direct democracy? Option A. A constitutional republic does not utilize popular voting to select any public officials. Option B. A constitutional republic protects minority rights through a supreme law that limits majority rule. Option C. A constitutional republic combines the positions of chief executive and chief judicial officer. Option D. A constitutional republic gives the legislative branch total immunity from constitutional review. The correct answer is option B. A constitutional republic protects minority rights through a supreme law that limits majority rule. A constitutional republic uses a higher law to limit majority power and protect individual and minority rights. A pure unchecked direct democracy could let a temporary majority override rights without constitutional restraint. Elections still matter, but the Constitution sets boundaries no majority may lawfully cross. Question 30. Which constitutional officer is second in the line of presidential succession, immediately following the Vice President of the United States? Option A. The Secretary of State. Option B. The President pro tempore of the Senate. Option C. The Speaker of the House of Representatives. Option D. The Chief Justice of the United States. The correct answer is option C. The Speaker of the House of Representatives. The Speaker of the House is second in line after the Vice President for presidential succession. The President pro tempore and cabinet officers follow later in the statutory line. Succession questions often test this order. Question 31. What does a writ of certiorari issued by the United States Supreme Court signify? Option A. A direct order releasing a prisoner from an illegal confinement. Option B. An official announcement that the court will review a case from a lower court. Option C. A declaration that a federal law has been completely overturned without oral arguments. Option D. A formal reprimand of an executive branch official by the Chief Justice. The correct answer is option B. An official announcement that the court will review a case from a lower court. A writ of certiorari means the Supreme Court has agreed to review a lower court case. Habeas corpus challenges detention, and certiorari is not itself a merits decision overturning a law. Certiorari is about granting review, not deciding the case. Question 32. In Boy Scouts of America v. Dale, 2000, the Supreme Court ruled that a private organization has a First Amendment right to exclude individuals based on its values under what doctrine? Option A. Freedom of the press. Option B. Freedom of expressive association. Option C. The Free Exercise Clause. Option D. The right to privacy. The correct answer is option B. Freedom of expressive association. Boy Scouts of America v. Dale recognized freedom of expressive association, allowing a private organization to exclude someone when inclusion would affect its message. It was not mainly a due process, commerce, or establishment case. Private group values and association point to Dale. Question 33. Which foundational principle is violated if a government arrests and imprisons a citizen indefinitely without charging them with a specific crime or providing a trial? Option A. Separation of powers. Option B. Due process of law. Option C. Fiscal conservatism. Option D. Republicanism. The correct answer is option B. Due process of law. Indefinite imprisonment without charges or trial violates due process because government is depriving liberty without fair legal procedure. Separation of powers and republicanism are related structural principles, but they do not name the specific protection against arbitrary detention. Due process requires notice, lawful grounds, and an opportunity to be heard. Question 34. Which Supreme Court ruling affirmed that the 14th Amendment requires all states to grant and recognize marriage licenses for same-sex couples? Option A. United States v. Windsor, 2013. Option B. Obergefell v. Hodges, 2015. Option C. Roe v. Wade, 1973. Option D. Griswold v. Connecticut, 1965. The correct answer is option B. Obergefell v. Hodges, 2015. Obergefell v. Hodges held that same-sex couples have a constitutional right to marry and that states must license and recognize those marriages. Windsor dealt with federal recognition issues before Obergefell, while Roe and Griswold involve privacy and reproduction. Same-sex marriage nationwide points to Obergefell. Question 35. Which amendment protected individual voting rights by prohibiting discrimination based on sex? Option A. 15th Amendment. Option B. 19th Amendment. Option C. 24th Amendment. Option D. 26th Amendment. The correct answer is option B. 19th Amendment. The 19th Amendment prohibits voting discrimination based on sex. The 15th concerns race, the 24th poll taxes, and the 26th age for voters 18 and older. Sex-based suffrage protection is the 19th. Question 36. Which amendment expanded suffrage by explicitly prohibiting the denial of the right to vote based on race, color, or previous condition of servitude? Option A. 13th Amendment. Option B. 14th Amendment. Option C. 15th Amendment. Option D. 19th Amendment. The correct answer is option C. 15th Amendment. The 15th Amendment prohibits denying the vote because of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. The 13th abolished slavery, the 14th guarantees citizenship and equal protection, and the 19th protects voting regardless of sex. Race-based voting discrimination points to the 15th. Question 37. Why did the framers of the United States Constitution purposefully reject a direct democracy in favor of a representative republic? Option A. They believed that a direct democracy would be too efficient and would lack necessary gridlock. Option B. They sought to protect society from the potential instability and tyranny of the majority. Option C. They wanted to ensure that the military would have direct control over economic policies. Option D. They believed that state governments should be completely abolished over time. The correct answer is option B. They sought to protect society from the potential instability and tyranny of the majority. The framers favored a republic because elected representatives and constitutional limits could reduce impulsive majority rule. They feared instability and tyranny of the majority, not excessive efficiency or military control. A representative system filters public will through institutions and protections. Question 38. Which case established the exclusionary rule, declaring that evidence obtained in violation of the Fourth Amendment cannot be used in a state criminal prosecution? Option A. Mapp v. Ohio, 1961. Option B. Miranda v. Arizona, 1966. Option C. Terry v. Ohio, 1968. Option D. Roe v. Wade, 1973. The correct answer is option A. Mapp v. Ohio, 1961. Mapp v. Ohio applied the exclusionary rule to the states, barring use of evidence obtained in violation of the Fourth Amendment. Miranda concerns interrogation warnings, Terry reasonable suspicion, and Roe privacy. Illegally seized evidence points to Mapp. Question 39. Which concept describes the idea that the law must be clear, publicized, stable, and just, applying equally to both the government and citizens? Option A. Judicial activism. Option B. Executive fiat. Option C. The rule of law. Option D. The mandate of heaven. The correct answer is option C. The rule of law. Rule of law means law must be public, clear, stable, and applied to both citizens and government. Judicial activism, executive fiat, and mandate of heaven do not require equal legal accountability. The concept rejects secret, arbitrary, or personal rule. Question 40. Which document served as the first written Constitution of the United States but was eventually replaced due to its creation of a weak central government? Option A. The Declaration of Independence. Option B. The Articles of Confederation. Option C. The Federalist Papers. Option D. The Northwest Ordinance. The correct answer is option B. The Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation were the first written national constitution of the United States and created a weak central government. The Declaration announced independence, the Federalist Papers defended the later Constitution, and the Northwest Ordinance governed Western Territory. Weak national authority is the Article's clue. Question 41. What is the defining characteristic of an authoritarian system of government? Option A. Complete adherence to a rigid system of checks and balances. Option B. Centralized power held by a political leader or elite group, with limited political freedoms. Option C. Direct management of all public utilities by neighborhood committees. Option D. Regular amendments to the Constitution via popular referendums. The correct answer is option B. Centralized power held by a political leader or elite group, with limited political freedoms. Authoritarian government concentrates power in a leader or elite and restricts political freedoms. Checks and balances, neighborhood control, and frequent referendums describe more limited or participatory arrangements. The key clue is centralized power with limited liberty. Question 42. What is the primary role of the leadership position known as a whip within both houses of Congress? Option A. To preside over the daily legislative sessions when the Speaker is absent. Option B. To track potential votes and ensure party discipline among members on key legislation. Option C. To deliver the official response to the President's State of the Union address. Option D. To manage the physical security of the congressional office buildings. The correct answer is option B. To track potential votes and ensure party discipline among members on key legislation. A party whip counts votes, communicates leadership positions, and pressures members to support the party strategy. Presiding over sessions, giving televised responses, and securing buildings are not the whip's job. The term is about party discipline and vote management. Question 43. What is an ex post facto law, which is expressly prohibited by the United States Constitution? Option A. A law that taxes goods exported directly from one state to another. Option B. A law that makes an action illegal retroactively after the action has been committed. Option C. A law that declares a specific individual guilty of a crime without a judicial trial. Option D. A law that permits the military to run domestic post offices during peacetime. The correct answer is option B. A law that makes an action illegal retroactively after the action has been committed. An ex post facto law retroactively makes conduct criminal or increases punishment after the act occurred. Export taxes and punishment without trial are different constitutional issues, and military post office administration is unrelated. The key idea is retroactive criminal punishment. Question 44. What core value ensures that all eligible citizens have an equal opportunity to cast a vote in public elections? Option A, economic equity. Option B, political equality. Option C, freedom of association. Option D, judicial independence. The correct answer is option B, political equality. Political equality means eligible citizens have an equal opportunity to participate in elections, especially by voting. Economic equity concerns resources, association concerns joining groups, and judicial independence concerns courts. Voting rights questions usually point to political equality. Question 45. Which system of checks and balances allows the legislative branch to counter an abusive or criminal executive leader? Option A, judicial review. Option B, the power of impeachment and removal. Option C, the pocket veto. Option D, declaratory judgments. The correct answer is option B, the power of impeachment and removal. Impeachment by the House and possible removal by the Senate allow Congress to respond to serious executive misconduct. Judicial review belongs to courts, and vetoes belong to the president. This is the legislative branch's strongest constitutional check on an abusive executive. Question 46. Which landmark pieces of legislation passed in 1965 established the federal regulatory framework for matching grant assistance to low-income and elderly healthcare systems? Option A, the Public Health Service Act. Option B, the Social Security Amendments of 1965, Medicare and Medicaid. Option C, the Federal Insurance Contributions Act. Option D, the Health Equity Act. The correct answer is option B, the Social Security Amendments of 1965, Medicare and Medicaid. The Social Security Amendments of 1965 created Medicare and Medicaid, the federal health insurance programs for elderly and low-income Americans. The original Social Security Act created retirement and unemployment programs but not those health systems. Medicare plus Medicaid points to the 1965 amendments. Question 47. What type of government structure distributes power so that a weak central government is subordinate to highly autonomous regional or state governments? Option A, unitary system. Option B, monarchy. Option C, confederation. Option D, totalitarian state. The correct answer is option C, confederation. A confederation has a weak central government and powerful member states or regions. A unitary system does the opposite by centralizing authority, while monarchy and totalitarianism describe who rules and how much freedom remains. The Articles of Confederation are the main U.S. example to remember. Question 48. The 24th Amendment protected the voting rights of low-income citizens by outlawing what practice in federal elections? Option A, literacy tests. Option B, grandfather clauses. Option C, poll taxes. Option D, property ownership requirements. The correct answer is option C, poll taxes. The 24th Amendment banned poll taxes in federal elections. Literacy tests and grandfather clauses were other discriminatory devices, and property requirements are a separate historical voting barrier. The amendment targeted the practice of charging citizens to vote. Question 49. What political concept is demonstrated when the federal government provides grant funding to states, but attaches specific conditions that the states must meet to receive the money? Option A, devolution. Option B, unicameralism. Option C, fiscal federalism. Option D, direct democracy. The correct answer is option C, fiscal federalism. Fiscal federalism describes national spending, grants, and financial incentives used to influence state policy. Devolution shifts power downward, unicameralism means one legislative chamber, and direct democracy involves citizen lawmaking. Conditional grants are the classic example of fiscal federalism. Question 50. Which amendment eliminated the original constitutional practice where the runner-up in the presidential election became the vice president? Option A, 11th Amendment. Option B, 12th Amendment. Option C, 13th Amendment. Option D, 14th Amendment. The correct answer is option B, 12th Amendment. The 12th Amendment separated voting for president and vice president, ending the runner-up system. The 11th concerned state sovereign immunity, the 13th abolished slavery, and the 14th defined citizenship and equal protection. Presidential election procedure points to the 12th. Question 51. Which permanent committee in the Senate reviews all potential judicial appointments before they are voted on by the full chamber? Option A, the Foreign Relations Committee. Option B, the Finance Committee. Option C, the Judiciary Committee. Option D, the Armed Services Committee. The correct answer is option C, the Judiciary Committee. The Senate Judiciary Committee reviews federal judicial nominees before the full Senate votes. Foreign Relations handles diplomacy, Finance handles taxes and spending programs, and Armed Services handles military matters. Judicial appointments point to judiciary. Question 52. Which Supreme Court ruling prohibited the use of racial quotas in legislative redistricting, stating that bizarrely shaped districts drawn solely on the basis of race violate the Equal Protection Clause? Option A. Baker v. Akar, 1962. Option B. Shaw v. Reno, 1993. Option C. Korematsu v. United States, 1944. Option D. Reynolds v. Sims, 1964. The correct answer is option B. Shaw v. Reno, 1993. Shaw v. Reno held that race cannot be the sole basis for bizarrely shaped legislative districts without triggering equal protection concerns. It is a racial gerrymandering case, not a school segregation or voting age case. Strange district shapes and race point to Shaw. Question 53. What is an example of an executive check on the power of the legislative branch? Option A. The power to declare a congressional act unconstitutional. Option B. The power to veto a bill passed by both houses of Congress. Option C. The power to refuse to fund a federal agency approved by the Senate. Option D. The power to remove a senator from office for ethical violations. The correct answer is option B. The power to veto a bill passed by both houses of Congress. The president's veto is an executive check on Congress because it blocks a bill from becoming law unless Congress overrides it. Courts declare laws unconstitutional, and Congress controls funding through legislation. The veto is the president's direct lawmaking check. Question 54. What was the primary political objective of the Federalist Papers written by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay? Option A. To advocate for the immediate abolition of state governments. Option B. To convince the states, particularly New York, to ratify the new United States Constitution. Option C. To demand that Great Britain pay financial reparations for the Revolutionary War. Option D. To support the re-election of George Washington as President of the Continental Congress. The correct answer is option B. To convince the states, particularly New York, to ratify the new United States Constitution. The Federalist Papers were written to persuade states, especially New York, to ratify the Constitution. They did not call for abolishing states, seek British reparations, or campaign for Washington. Hamilton, Madison, and Jay defended the new constitutional structure. Question 55. Which executive department is responsible for managing the nation's public lands, national parks, and natural resources? Option A. Department of Agriculture. Option B. Department of the Interior. Option C. Department of Energy. Option D. Department of Commerce. The correct answer is option B. Department of the Interior. The Department of the Interior manages public lands, national parks, and many natural resources. Agriculture, energy, and commerce have related policy areas but not the broad public lands mission. Interior is the Land and Parks Department. Question 56. In a representative democracy, what is the primary mechanism through which citizens grant the consent of the governed? Option A. Regular, free, and fair elections. Option B. Payment of mandatory federal income taxes. Option C. Participation in mandatory military conscription. Option D. Enlistment in local civic or charitable groups. The correct answer is option A. Regular, free, and fair elections. Regular, free, and fair elections are the main way citizens give consent in a representative democracy. Paying taxes, military service, and civic groups may support society, but they do not choose public officials. Elections convert public consent into lawful governing authority. Question 57. Which landmark act passed in 1938 established the federal minimum wage, overtime pay standards, and child labor prohibitions? Option A. The National Labor Relations Act. Option B. The Fair Labor Standards Act. Option C. The Norris-LaGuardia Act. Option D. The Taft-Hartley Act. The correct answer is option B. The Fair Labor Standards Act. The Fair Labor Standards Act established federal minimum wage, overtime pay, and child labor rules. Taft-Hartley regulates unions, OSHA workplace safety, and Social Security retirement benefits. Wage and hour standards point to FLSA. Question 58. Article 3 of the United States Constitution establishes which specific judicial entity? Option A. The Federal Courts of Appeals. Option B. The United States Supreme Court. Option C. The United States Court of Federal Claims. Option D. The District Bankruptcy Courts. The correct answer is option B. The United States Supreme Court. Article 3 establishes the Supreme Court and permits Congress to create lower federal courts. Courts of appeals, bankruptcy courts, and specialized claims courts exist by statute rather than direct constitutional creation. The Supreme Court is the only federal court named in Article 3. Question 59. Which element of the U.S. governing structure prevents the legislative branch from consolidating absolute power? Option A. The President's authority as Commander-in-Chief. Option B. The bicameral structure of Congress and the system of checks and balances. Option C. The absolute veto power held by individual state governors over federal bills. Option D. The requirement that all laws be approved by a unanimous popular vote. The correct answer is option B. The bicameral structure of Congress and the system of checks and balances. Bicameralism and checks and balances stop Congress from becoming an unchecked lawmaking authority. The Commander-in-Chief role checks military command, not legislative dominance, and state governors cannot veto federal bills. A unanimous popular vote is not part of the federal lawmaking process. Question 60. What constitutional mechanism prevents a bill from becoming law if the President leaves it unsigned during a time when Congress adjourns within 10 days? Option A. Line item veto. Option B. Pocket veto. Option C. Executive decree. Option D. Legislative deferral. The correct answer is option B. Pocket veto. A pocket veto occurs when the President does not sign a bill within 10 days and Congress adjourns, preventing its return. A line item veto targets parts of a bill, while executive decree and legislative deferral are not the constitutional mechanism. The clue is in sign plus congressional adjournment. Question 61. Which of the following is an example of an informal way citizens can participate in the democratic process? Option A. Serving as a juror on a criminal trial. Option B. Discussing political issues and volunteering for a local community organization. Option C. Paying state-mandated vehicle registration fees. Option D. Completing the federal decennial census form. The correct answer is option B. Discussing political issues and volunteering for a local community organization. Discussing issues and volunteering are informal participation because citizens engage politically or civically without a formal legal role. Jury service, vehicle registration, and the census are official or legally required processes. Informal participation still strengthens democratic culture. Question 62. How can the legislative branch check the power of the judicial branch under the U.S. Constitution? Option A. By altering the size of the Supreme Court and confirming or rejecting judicial nominees. Option B. By issuing an executive order that pardons individuals convicted by federal courts. Option C. By removing a judge from the bench through a unilateral decree from the Speaker of the House. Option D. By rewriting a court ruling to reverse a judicial decision directly. The correct answer is option A. By altering the size of the Supreme Court and confirming or rejecting judicial nominees. Congress can check the judiciary by setting the size and structure of lower federal courts, confirming or rejecting nominees, and using impeachment for misconduct. Pardons are executive, and Congress cannot simply rewrite a court ruling as if it were a judgment. Legislative checks operate through appointments, structure, jurisdiction, and removal. Question 63. A citizen cannot be forced to testify against themselves in a criminal trial due to protections found in which amendment? Option A. 4th Amendment. Option B. 5th Amendment. Option C. 6th Amendment. Option D. 8th Amendment. The correct answer is option B. 5th Amendment. The 5th Amendment protects against compelled self-incrimination in criminal cases. The 4th protects against unreasonable searches, the 6th protects trial rights, and the 8th limits punishments. The phrase pleading the 5th comes from this protection. Question 64. Which executive department is tasked with conducting international relations, managing embassies, and advancing American foreign policy interests? Option A. Department of Homeland Security. Option B. Department of Defense. Option C. Department of State. Option D. Department of Commerce. The correct answer is option C. Department of State. The Department of State conducts diplomacy, manages embassies, and advances foreign policy. Defense handles the military, Homeland Security, domestic security, and commerce, business and trade programs. Embassies and diplomacy point to state. Question 65. Which power is considered a concurrent power shared by both the federal government and state governments? Option A. Declaring war against foreign governments. Option B. Coining national paper money. Option C. Establishing courts and enforcing laws. Option D. Creating rules for naturalization of immigrants. The correct answer is option C. Establishing courts and enforcing laws. Establishing courts and enforcing laws can be done by both federal and state governments, making these concurrent powers. Declaring war, coining money, and naturalization rules are national powers. Concurrent powers show overlap inside federalism. Question 66. Which basic practice of American democracy allows regular citizens to influence the legislation written by their elected representatives? Option A. Filing a writ of habeas corpus. Option B. Lobbying, petitioning, and contacting elected officials. Option C. Refusing to pay local property taxes. Option D. Submitting amicus curiae briefs directly to local police departments. The correct answer is option B. Lobbying, petitioning, and contacting elected officials. Lobbying, petitioning, and contacting representatives let citizens shape legislation without holding office. Habeas corpus challenges detention, tax refusal is unlawful, and amicus briefs are legal filings rather than ordinary contact with lawmakers. The First Amendment protects petitioning government. Question 67. Which document was written to justify the separation of the American colonies from Great Britain by listing specific grievances against King George III? Option A. The Federalist No. 10. Option B. The Articles of Confederation. Option C. The Declaration of Independence. Option D. The Bill of Rights. The correct answer is option C. The Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence justified separation from Britain by listing grievances against King George III. The Articles organized the first U.S. government. Federalist No. 10 defended the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights lists liberties. Grievances against the king are the giveaway. Question 68. Which clause of Article I allows Congress to levy taxes to provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States? Option A. The Taxing and Spending Clause. Option B. The Commerce Clause. Option C. The Elastic Clause. Option D. The Full Faith Clause. The correct answer is option A. The Taxing and Spending Clause. The Taxing and Spending Clause authorizes Congress to tax and spend for the common defense and general welfare. The Commerce Clause regulates interstate commerce, the Elastic Clause supports implied powers, and full faith and credit concerns state records. The words common defense and general welfare identify taxing and spending. Question 69. What did the Supreme Court decide regarding federal campaign finance laws in the landmark case Citizens United v. Federal Election Commission, 2010? Option A. Corporations and unions have a First Amendment right to spend unlimited independent amounts of money on political communications. Option B. Political action committees are completely banned from donating money to congressional candidates. Option C. Foreign corporations are granted identical political spending rights as domestic citizens. Option D. All political advertisements must be funded exclusively by the federal government. The correct answer is option A. Corporations and unions have a First Amendment right to spend unlimited independent amounts of money on political communications. Citizens United held that corporations and unions may spend unlimited independent funds on political communications under the First Amendment. It did not ban political action committees or give foreign corporations the same campaign rights. The key word is independent expenditures. Question 70. In Neer v. Minnesota, 1931, the Supreme Court solidified the First Amendment's protection of a free press by ruling what? Option A. Journalists are immune from criminal prosecution for libel. Option B. Prior restraint on publication is unconstitutional except in rare, extreme cases involving national security. Option C. State governments can tax newspaper companies at a higher rate than manufacturers. Option D. News publications must grant equal space to opposing political candidates. The correct answer is option B. Prior restraint on publication is unconstitutional except in rare, extreme cases involving national security. Neer v. Minnesota strongly protected press freedom by rejecting prior restraints except in rare extreme circumstances. It differs from libel cases, which punish speech after publication. Prior restraint against a newspaper points to Neer. Question 71. In Pierce v. Society of Sisters, 1925, the Supreme Court struck down a state law requiring all children to attend public schools, affirming what right? Option A. The state's power to standardize historical education. Option B. The constitutional right of parents to send their children to private or parochial schools. Option C. The absolute separation of church and educational policy. Option D. The commercial immunity of nonprofit entities. The correct answer is option B. The constitutional right of parents to send their children to private or parochial schools. Pierce v. Society of Sisters affirmed parents' liberty to choose private or parochial education rather than being forced into public schools only. Meyer protected a related parental education right involving foreign language instruction. Mandatory public school-only laws point to Pierce. Question 72. What happens if a presidential candidate fails to secure a majority of 270 electoral votes in the Electoral College? Option A. The election is voided and a new nationwide popular vote is held. Option B. The House of Representatives chooses the president, with each state casting one vote. Option C. The sitting Supreme Court selects the winner by a secret ballot. Option D. The candidate with the most total popular votes automatically wins. The correct answer is option B. The House of Representatives chooses the president, with each state casting one vote. If no presidential candidate receives an electoral college majority, the House chooses the president with each state delegation casting one vote. The winner is not automatically the popular vote leader, and the Supreme Court does not select the president. This is the contingent election process. Question 73. What is the function of a dissenting opinion written by a Supreme Court justice? Option A. To express legal disagreement with the majority decision and outline why the decision is flawed. Option B. To officially veto the majority's decision and send the case back to a lower court. Option C. To summarize the factual evidence presented during the initial trial court proceedings. Option D. To provide a non-binding policy recommendation to the executive branch. The correct answer is option A. To express legal disagreement with the majority decision and outline why the decision is flawed. A dissenting opinion explains why a justice disagrees with the majority's decision or reasoning. It does not veto the majority, retry facts, or send policy advice to the executive. Dissents can influence future legal development even though they do not control the case. Question 74. What landmark piece of legislation established the contemporary framework for federal environmental protections, requiring environmental impact statements for major projects? Option A. The Clean Air Act of 1970. Option B. The National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, of 1969. Option C. The Endangered Species Act of 1973. Option D. The Comprehensive Environmental Response Act. The correct answer is option B. The National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, of 1969. NEPA established broad federal environmental review and requires environmental impact statements for major federal actions. The Clean Air Act, Endangered Species Act, and CERCLA address different environmental problems. Environmental impact statements are the NEPA clue. Question 75. What is the constitutional role of the Vice President of the United States within the legislative branch? Option A. Serving as the permanent Speaker of the House of Representatives. Option B. Serving as the President of the Senate, with the power to cast a vote only to break a tie. Option C. Writing the initial drafts of all federal revenue and tax bills. Option D. Directing the scheduling of all legislative floor debates in the Senate. The correct answer is option B. Serving as the President of the Senate, with the power to cast a vote only to break a tie. The Vice President is President of the Senate and normally votes only to break a tie. The Speaker leads the House, and Senate floor scheduling is handled by Senate leadership. The role gives the Vice President a limited legislative function. Question 76. What did the Supreme Court rule in Employment Division v. Smith, 1990, regarding the use of illegal drugs in religious ceremonies? Option A. States must create explicit exemptions for religious drug use under the Free Exercise Clause. Option B. Individuals are not exempt from neutral, generally applicable criminal laws solely because of their religious beliefs. Option C. The federal government has the authority to dictate local religious rituals. Option D. The Ninth Amendment completely protects the use of all organic substances. The correct answer is option B. Individuals are not exempt from neutral, generally applicable criminal laws solely because of their religious beliefs. Employment Division v. Smith held that neutral, generally applicable laws may be enforced even when they burden religious practice. It did not create a broad religious exemption from criminal law. Illegal drug use in a religious ceremony points to Smith. Question 77. What is the fundamental basis for civil liberties in the United States political system? Option A. They are granted to citizens as rewards for outstanding public service. Option B. They are natural rights protected against government overreach by constitutional amendments. Option C. They are conditional privileges that expire during every federal election cycle. Option D. They are dictated entirely by the individual preferences of local police forces. The correct answer is option B. They are natural rights protected against government overreach by constitutional amendments. Civil liberties are rights protected against government overreach, many of them rooted in natural rights theory and secured by constitutional amendments. They are not rewards, temporary election cycle privileges, or police preferences. The Bill of Rights is the main study anchor for civil liberties. Question 78. Which amendment contains the citizenship clause that grants birthright citizenship to anyone born or naturalized in the United States? Option A. 12th Amendment. Option B. 13th Amendment. Option C. 14th Amendment. Option D. 15th Amendment. The correct answer is option C. 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment contains the citizenship clause, granting citizenship to people born or naturalized in the United States and subject to its jurisdiction. The 13th abolished slavery, and the 15th protected voting regardless of race. Birthright citizenship points to the 14th. Question 79. What occurs during the process known as gerrymandering? Option A. The executive branch redistributes funds from independent federal regulatory agencies. Option B. Legislative district boundaries are redrawn to favor a specific political party or group. Option C. The Supreme Court consolidates multiple civil rights lawsuits into a single landmark case. Option D. State governors appoint family members to vacant congressional seats. The correct answer is option B. Legislative district boundaries are redrawn to favor a specific political party or group. Gerrymandering occurs when district lines are drawn to benefit a party, group, or incumbent. It is not a budget transfer, Supreme Court consolidation, or nepotistic appointment. The term always points to manipulated electoral district boundaries. Question 80. What constitutional mechanism allows Congress to pass a law over a presidential veto? Option A. A simple majority vote in both chambers. Option B. A two-thirds override vote in both the House and the Senate. Option C. An appeal to the Supreme Court for an immediate ruling. Option D. A referendum vote by 3/4 of the state governors. The correct answer is option B. A two-thirds override vote in both the House and the Senate. Congress can override a presidential veto with a two-thirds vote in both the House and Senate. A simple majority is not enough, and courts or governors do not override vetoes. The high threshold preserves the veto while allowing strong legislative consensus to prevail. Question 81. Which article contains the framework for relations among the states and the process for admitting new states to the Union? Option A. Article 3. Option B. Article 4. Option C. Article V. Option D. Article 6. The correct answer is option B. Article 4. Article 4 governs interstate relations, full faith and credit, privileges and immunities, and admission of new states. Article 3 concerns courts, Article V amendments, and Article 6 supremacy and oaths. State-to-state and new state questions point to Article 4. Question 82. What major compromise at the 1787 Constitutional Convention resolved the dispute over legislative representation by creating a bicameral Congress with one house based on population and the other based on equal representation? Option A. The Three-Fifths Compromise. Option B. The Commerce Compromise. Option C. The Great Connecticut Compromise. Option D. The Electoral College Compromise. The correct answer is option C. The Great Connecticut Compromise. The Great, or Connecticut, Compromise created a bicameral Congress with proportional representation in the House and equal state representation in the Senate. The Three-Fifths Compromise addressed enslaved persons for representation and taxation, not the two-house structure. Representation disputes point to the Great Compromise. Question 83. The concept that human beings possess inherent rights to life and liberty that cannot be justly stripped away by any government is known as what? Option A. Civil privileges. Option B. Statutory exemptions. Option C. Unalienable, or natural, rights. Option D. Executive prerogatives. The correct answer is option C. Unalienable, or natural, rights. Unalienable or natural rights are inherent rights people possess by nature, not by government permission. Civil privileges, statutory exemptions, and executive prerogatives are created by law or office. Life and liberty are the classic examples. Question 84. Which governing body under the Articles of Confederation served as the entire national framework, lacking separate executive and judicial branches? Option A. The House of Burgesses. Option B. A unicameral Continental Congress. Option C. The Annapolis Convention. Option D. The Privy Council. The correct answer is option B. A unicameral Continental Congress. The Articles of Confederation created a unicameral Continental Congress as the national government, without separate executive or judicial branches. The House of Burgesses was colonial, the Annapolis Convention was a meeting, and the Privy Council was British. One House National Congress points to the Articles. Question 85. What constitutional power allows the President to reject an individual section of an appropriations bill while signing the remainder into law? Option A. Pocket veto. Option B. Line item veto, note, held unconstitutional at the federal level. Option C. Executive decree. Option D. Categorical refusal. The correct answer is option B. Line item veto, note, held unconstitutional at the federal level. A line item veto is the power to reject specific parts of a spending bill while approving the rest. At the federal level, the Supreme Court held this device unconstitutional, so presidents normally must sign or veto an entire bill. A pocket veto is different because it involves an action when Congress adjourns. Question 86. Which federal agency is an example of an independent regulatory commission that operates outside the direct control of the executive departments? Option A. The Department of Defense. Option B. The Federal Communications Commission, FCC. Option C. The National Park Service. Option D. The Bureau of Indian Affairs. The correct answer is option B, the Federal Communications Commission, FCC. The Federal Communications Commission is an independent regulatory commission, not a cabinet department. The Defense Department, National Park Service, and Bureau of Indian Affairs sit within the executive department structure. Independent commissions regulate specialized sectors with some insulation from direct presidential control. Question 87. What is the fundamental goal of a written constitution in a democratic society? Option A. To guarantee that the economy remains free from any inflation or recession. Option B. To establish the baseline framework, duties, and limits of the government. Option C. To prevent the public from voting on complex tax amendments. Option D. To automate the judicial selection process without human input. The correct answer is option B. To establish the baseline framework, duties, and limits of the government. A democratic constitution establishes the structure, powers, duties, and limits of government. It does not guarantee economic conditions, block all tax votes, or automate judicial selection. Its main job is to set the legal framework for self-government. Question 88. What major legislation passed in 1947 regulated the activities and power of labor unions, restricting wildcat strikes and banning closed shops? Option A. The Wagner Act. Option B. The Taft-Hartley Act. Option C. The Landrum-Griffin Act. Option D. The Fair Labor Act. The correct answer is option B, the Taft-Hartley Act. The Taft-Hartley Act limited certain union practices and amended federal labor law after the New Deal era. The Fair Labor Standards Act covers wage and hour rules, while OSHA covers workplace safety. Union power and labor management regulation point to Taft-Hartley. Question 89. What is the term length for an individual who serves on the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System? Option A. 4 years. Option B. 6 years. Option C. 10 years. Option D. 14 years. The correct answer is option D. 14 years. Members of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors serve 14-year terms. The long term is designed to insulate monetary policy from short-term political pressure. 4, 6, and 10 years are not the statutory board term. Question 90. Which article of the Constitution details the process required for the original ratification of the document by the states? Option A. Article 4. Option B. Article V. Option C. Article 6. Option D. Article 7. The correct answer is option D. Article 7. Article 7 set the process for original ratification of the Constitution by the states. Article V concerns amendments, Article 6 includes supremacy and oaths, and Article 4 concerns interstate relations. Ratification of the original document points to Article 7. Question 91. How does the United States Constitution limit the power of the federal government to suspend the writ of habeas corpus? Option A. It can never be suspended under any circumstances whatsoever. Option B. It can only be suspended during times of rebellion or invasion when public safety requires it. Option C. It can be suspended at any time by a unilateral executive order from the President. Option D. It can be suspended only if the Supreme Court issues an official judicial advisory opinion. The correct answer is option B. It can only be suspended during times of rebellion or invasion when public safety requires it. The Constitution allows suspension of habeas corpus only during rebellion or invasion when public safety requires it. It is not absolutely unsuspendable, nor may the President suspend it at will. Habeas corpus protects against unlawful detention by requiring legal justification for custody. Question 92. Which system of government combines the legislative and executive functions, choosing the Prime Minister directly from the ranks of the majority party in the legislature? Option A. Presidential system. Option B. Parliamentary system. Option C. Absolute monarchy. Option D. Oligarchy. The correct answer is option B. Parliamentary system. A parliamentary system combines executive and legislative leadership because the Prime Minister comes from the legislative majority. A presidential system separates those branches, while monarchy and oligarchy describe rule by a monarch or small elite. The key clue is the executive being chosen from the legislature. Question 93. What constitutional requirement must be met for a law enforcement officer to obtain a valid search warrant? Option A. Universal public approval. Option B. A verbal directive from a police chief. Option C. Probable cause supported by an oath or affirmation. Option D. A simple majority vote from a local city council. The correct answer is option C. Probable cause supported by an oath or affirmation. A valid search warrant requires probable cause supported by oath or affirmation and must describe the place and items with particularity. Public approval, a police chief's verbal order, or a city council vote cannot substitute for Fourth Amendment standards. Probable cause is the key threshold. Question 94. In Weeks v. United States, 1914, the Supreme Court established the exclusionary rule for what level of government? Option A, state municipal police forces only. Option B, the federal government and federal law enforcement agencies. Option C, tribal reservation courts. Option D, military tribunals operating overseas. The correct answer is option B, the federal government and federal law enforcement agencies. Weeks v. United States created the exclusionary rule for federal law enforcement. Mapp later applied that rule to the states. The distinction to remember is Weeks for federal officers and Mapp for state prosecutions. Question 95. Which landmark civil rights ruling explicitly overturned this separate but equal doctrine, declaring that racially segregated public schools are inherently unequal? Option A, Plessy v. Ferguson, 1896. Option B, Brown v. Board of Education, 1954. Option C, Mapp v. Ohio, 1961. Option D, Gideon v. Wainwright, 1963. The correct answer is option B, Brown v. Board of Education, 1954. Brown v. Board of Education held that segregated public schools are inherently unequal and overturned separate but equal in education. Plessy had approved segregation, while Mapp and Gideon concern criminal procedure. School segregation and equal protection point to Brown. Question 96. What major legislation passed in 1965 created health insurance programs for elderly Americans, Medicare, and low-income individuals, Medicaid? Option A, the Social Security Amendments of 1965. Option B, the Affordable Care Act of 2010. Option C, the Health Insurance Portability Act. Option D, the National Institutes of Health Act. The correct answer is option A, the Social Security Amendments of 1965. The Social Security Amendments of 1965 created Medicare for the elderly and Medicaid for low-income individuals. The original 1935 Social Security Act did not create those health insurance programs. Medicare plus Medicaid points to the 1965 amendments. Question 97. What does the Constitution require the federal government to guarantee to every state in the Union under Article 4, Section 4? Option A, a balanced annual fiscal budget. Option B, a Republican form of government. Option C, a state-funded public university system. Option D, an equal number of military installations. The correct answer is option B, a Republican form of government. Article 4 requires the United States to guarantee every state a Republican form of government. It does not require balanced budgets, public universities, or equal military bases. This is known as the Guarantee Clause. Question 98. What was the legal outcome of the infamous Dred Scott v. Sandford, 1857, Supreme Court decision? Option A, it declared that African Americans, whether enslaved or free, were not citizens and that Congress could not ban slavery in U.S. territories. Option B, it established this separate but equal doctrine for public transportation systems. Option C, it ruled that state-level segregation laws were a direct violation of the Privileges Clause. Option D, it forced northern states to pay financial restitution for runaway slaves. The correct answer is option A, it declared that African Americans, whether enslaved or free, were not citizens and that Congress could not ban slavery in U.S. territories. Dred Scott v. Sandford held that African Americans were not citizens and that Congress lacked power to ban slavery in the territories. Plessy created separate but equal, and later civil rights cases rejected segregation. The decision is infamous because it protected slavery and denied citizenship. Question 99. What major geographic tract of land did Thomas Jefferson purchase using an executive action that tested his strict interpretation of the Constitution? Option A, the Gadsden Purchase. Option B, the Louisiana Purchase. Option C, the Alaska Purchase. Option D, the Florida Cession. The correct answer is option B, the Louisiana Purchase. The Louisiana Purchase expanded U.S. territory and tested Jefferson's strict reading of constitutional power. The Gadsden, Alaska, and Florida acquisitions occurred in different administrations and contexts. Jefferson's major executive land acquisition was Louisiana. Question 100. Which case addressed the counting of popular votes during a presidential election, halting a state-level recount and effectively determining the outcome? Option A, United States v. Nixon, 1974. Option B, Clinton v. Jones, 1997. Option C, Bush v. Gore, 2000. Option D, Baker v. Carr, 1962. The correct answer is option C, Bush v. Gore, 2000. Bush v. Gore halted the Florida recount in the 2000 presidential election, effectively resolving the electoral outcome. It was not a campaign finance, segregation, or executive privilege case. Vote counting in a presidential election points to Bush v. Gore.